So you want to...
Thank you very much. You can resume your seats and the President will be arriving in a few moments. Thank you. Great pleasure to welcome you to this ceremony this morning as we gather for the naming of this bridge in honour of Tom Clarke. The naming of the bridge is a significant event for the city and indeed a significant event in Dublin City Council's commemorations programme. The City Council's commemorations committee, made up of elected representatives and officials, aimed to present a programme that engaged the interest and participation of people throughout the city whilst adopting an inclusive and respectful approach to 1916 and a central role in the struggle for Irish independence. Our programme has supported over 200 community groups across Dublin in marking 1916 in their own communities and has delivered hundreds of lectures and talks and workshops and exhibitions, books and digital content, as well as two major capital projects in the Henrietta Street Museum and Richmond Barracks, which was opened yesterday by Ardmhéara Queen Nídálaigh. Opened in 1984, the East Link passed into the ownership of Dublin City Council under the care of our Roads and Traffic Department on the 1st of January 2016. 14,000 vehicles pass over the bridge each day, and all toll income from those vehicles goes towards the ongoing maintenance of the bridge and for various transportation projects throughout the city. When the bridge came into public ownership, the Tom Clarke Committee, I'm glad to see their president here this morning, the Tom Clarke Committee lost no time in proposing that it be named in honour of Tom Clarke, and their proposal was considered and approved by the Council's Commemorative Naming Committee and endorsed by the full City Council at its meeting of the 7th of March 2016. There was no more fitting day than today, the 100th anniversary of Tom Clarke's execution, for this naming ceremony, and it's also fitting that the naming be performed by our President in the presence of the Lord Mayor. And so it is now my honour to invite Uachtaráin na hÉireann, Michael D. Higgins, to speak.
Go hilig Iana an Oracha to firkin áchas ar an bhein seo liver majan chun drehead hamáisi cléirige anamnú is min ma weekas a gháil rinda céine as cuire chuirt an Pórta Glacas an acáid seo agus libse ar fad as an firkin fóilse dar is rum héin is rep na bhein céile. Dar nóid an acáid seo fíorthóhachtach don cuiste comóra Hamáisi Clarke tá sé tábhachtach is iamsan na gcuirte tá baile agus is ítar chun radaigh go bhfuil na hocáide seo ag fáil tacaíocht ó muintir na háirte ó comhúdar Clarke. I'm absolutely delighted to be here and to have been asked to be part of this naming of the bridge in honour of Tom Clarke. I'm delighted particularly that we have had so many members of the community participating in these events, and this must be, of course, a very special event for the members of the Clarke family, the Tom Clarke Memorial Committee, they have succeeded, and members of the officials of Dublin City Council, and all of who were involved in any way. In recent weeks, the events we have been commemorating have been reflecting on the proclamation of 1916, on the idealism that inspired it, and the great debt of gratitude that we owe to the many brave men and women who offered their lives in order that Ireland could become a free and independent state. The names of the leaders of the 1916 Rising, of course, are written indelibly into the history books of Ireland. Some of them have also been immortalised in the names of Dublin's streets and buildings. And thus, as people pass by these buildings, they are embedded into the daily lives and consciousness of thousands of citizens as they go about their normal business. You have heard how many people use this great bridge, and as they pass over, they will perhaps think again of the hero whose name it carries. And today, the name of Tom Clarke, the first signatory of the proclamation, will join that roll call. And it is perhaps an honour that some would suggest is overdue, but there can be no doubt that he is the figure that links the revolutionary generations. Tom Clarke stands alongside figures like O'Donovan Rossa, John Devoy and Robert Emmet. He symbolises the integration of a set of experiences that we will read about in history, and that is experience of prison, experience of exile and return, of membership of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, as a volunteer, and of course in military action, and finally, of course, the events that led to his execution that we think of today. When names such as Patrick Pearse, James Connolly and Joseph Plunkett spring to mind in recalling the seismic events of that Easter week of 1916, we should always remember that Tom Clarke is the connection to the previous generations and to the Irish across the Atlantic. Kathleen Clarke, his widow, is symbolic of those widows who, while suffering great loss, turned their efforts into providing relief for others and continuing a struggle for equality. I often think, for example, of these women who cooperated with each other. Eva Gobruth, who visits her sister Constance, who immediately tell us to visit Mrs. Mallon, and in the work of Kathleen Clarke in trying to ensure that the families would be at least minimally looked after And then, of course, they're speaking of their experiences, which would be very important for generations that followed. Tom Clarke has rightfully been described as one of the key architects of the Easter Rising. Born in England in 1857, just a decade after the Irish famine, to Irish parents, Tom Clarke joined the Irish Republican Brotherhood as a young man, and thereafter devoted his life to the liberation of Ireland from British rule. Clarke's road to the Rising was not an easy one, requiring much sacrifice and hardship, but it was a road defined by great resilience and determination as he resolutely proceeded in the direction of an independent Ireland. Having gone to New York as a young man, he joined Clarke and became active in their campaign for Irish independence. Arrested in London in 1883, he endured many years of harsh imprisonment and was later to describe his time in prison as an earthly hell, adding that the horror of those nights and days will never leave my memory. And I'm sure that the Memorial Committee will know as well of Kathleen Clarke's great anxiety when they were deciding to return to Ireland, that he would have to go through something similar. He remained, however, committed in his resolve to strike against the British Empire. He spent some further years in America after his release from prison and returned to Ireland in 1908 with the intention of initiating an armed insurrection. Because of his criminal convictions, Tom Clarke maintained a low profile back in his home country. He sought a tactical rather than a visible presence amongst the revolutionaries who dreamt and spoke of a new independent Ireland. And in those years leading up to the Rising, that was how he planned it. His was a profoundly influential presence, however, one of planning and pragmatism, as he played a key role in the revitalisation of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. His tobacconist shop was a centre for the exchange of intelligence, and not only among those of the IRB. Photographs show advertisements for literature and pamphlets in both English and Irish on display. Because neither anagnoho can made falsche con a vir for it and a pamphlet is na paperi esuya. It was closely watched by British intelligence, the shop, and yet business continued. And behind the formal business, the business of preparing for a rising. Later, Tom Clarke would stand beside Patrick Pearse in front of the GPO during that iconic moment when the proclamation was read aloud for the very first time on the 24th of April 1916. Following the Rising, Tom Clarke faced death bravely. The actions of 1916 gave, he believed, hope for a future Ireland of freedom, of an Ireland of freedom and of great possibility. Féidirachtaí nach raibh fáil an am. He and all of the leaders of 1916 died sharing a vision of a brave new Ireland, a nation that would be rooted in courage and vision and a profound spirit of generous humanity, able to take its place among the other nations. And thus, as we continue to commemorate the centenary of the Easter Rising, we are invited ourselves to continue the work of building a republic of which our founders would be proud, to seek to achieve the unfulfilled promises of the past as we imagine together new possibilities for our present and collective future, a future that we must achieve together, including all of our people. For 32 years, this bridge has served Dublin well, providing a vital link between the north and south sides of our capital city. It is greatly apt that a structure so strongly symbolic of unity and connection and the overcoming of obstacles be named after the committed, determined and inspirational Tom Clarke, a man who dedicated his entire adult life to the vision of a liberated and just Ireland. Mar fagus scuris min la mawicus a guadarish, la cush the cusna con homashi clearig, agus la corla carag valio clear, as drehet on nas kvoher here a animnu. Malam shivasur gina ahanta sata, harre a hort and lechra more, agus den kianar et a mosa clearig. Is minlam kawama weeka sa kawali var fad, muinta na hartan fopa, at our balia gwithna Thomas Clarke, Farah will me der fad, fui kumin ege. May I conclude then by thanking again the John Clarke Memorial Committee in Dublin City Council, its members and officials, and all of you for the renaming of the East Link Bridge. I commend you for choosing to honour a great hero and leader for whom recognition is long overdue. And I also want to again thank all the members of the public who have gathered here today in memory of Tom Clarke, a man to whom our nation and future generations is so indebted. Garamila maha kikilin.
Thank you very much, President Higgins. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ard Mhairiúil Balla Clia Crina Nidali.
Ultron Heron, Michael D. Higgins, Sabina Kyle Higgins, Buil Tuffa Corla Carla Balla Clia, Buil Tuffa Erachtas agus Shannon na Heron, Buil Cushna Quibna Con Tomasi Cleric, agus Clen Tomasi Cleric, Kern Fear Fatro Vedican Shahanyu. Is Cush Bro dumps if a tough a case on a gun cover archer shell, agus mid a comores a chlora Caitlina Oiri Amach na Casca. Kay not cart nav ordi yenov, dun vade a harla in night na ella taven way, dun cover shell. Is a cover shell a plan alla, agus a gira grieve more octree help than a casca. I'd like to welcome you all here today to Dublin's Docklands for this renaming of the East Link Bridge to commemorate Tom Clarke. This area has seen some very interesting visitors down through the years. In 1800, Captain William Bligh of Mutiny on the Bounty fame conducted a long-year scientific research survey of Dublin Bay. He resided in Saxford Street, now O'Connell Street, and would have passed this spot regularly carrying out his survey. The outcome of the survey was the building of the Great Wall stretching out to Poolbeg. The bridge was constructed in 1984. In 2009, we welcomed one of the most dramatic visitors to the city at this point when the beautiful Samuel Beckett Bridge, designed by Santiago Cantelvara, entered the River Liffey to take up residence. Michael Phillips, city engineer of the time, stood on this bridge and padded the new bridge as it passed through to take up residence in its new home. In 2012, it was the final post to pass on the final leg of the tall ships race, and it opened to welcome all to Dublin following a stormy crossing from a Coruna in northwestern Spain. Tall ships would once have been a regular sight in this area, from the Ringsend shore right up to the Custom House, and it was wonderful to see them here again. And today, it witnesses a new piece of history. Today, the 3rd of May 2016, is 100 years to the day that Thomas J. Clarke was executed for his part in the 1916 Rising. Thomas Clarke was a Republican, a revolutionary, the first signatory of the proclamation, and the man who did not want to surrender. He had a strong connection with this area. He was president of the Pipers Club in the North Wall area. In 1909, he set up the North Dock Ward branch of Sinn Féin and became its president. Following Easter 1916, he left behind a wife and 3 sons. And I would like to pay tribute to his widow, my predecessor, Kathleen Daly Clarke, or Kathleen Ban Ecleric, whose portrait we hung with pride in the Mansion House this year. She supported Tom and his Republican beliefs throughout his life. She was a member of Cumann na Mán and was one of the few outside the Supreme Council who knew that an insurrection was planned for Easter 1916. Kathleen lost both her husband and her brother to the executioners in 1916. She entered politics in 1919 to further her husband's ideals at a time when women were strongly discouraged from entering politics. In 1939, she was elected as the first female Lord Mayor of Ard Mhairiúil for 2 terms, 1939 to 1941. In her inauguration speech that night, she thanked the previous Lord Mayor, Alfie Bourne, saying, "He never seemed to forget that he had in my person the representative of a man whom all Ireland honours. It is because I represent that man, not anything that I believe within myself, that he has put me in this chair here tonight." It is only right and fitting that we honour Thomas Clarke and all of those who gave so much for an Ireland that many of them would never see, and to express our profound gratitude to all of the surviving relatives, some of whom today present here. In Shohanyu agus muid ag smíniú ar now mat ar catja, gan muid fear buchas as och muinta croga na heran, a raibh súla cos saoil níos fearr a want amach, dá dír agus dá good Saranic ar fad. We are a very different country today than 100 years ago, but the vision, the dreams of Thomas Clarke, as the President said earlier, and the men and women of 1916 and the struggle for independence is still the measure of who we are as people and as a society, the yardstick by which we judge our progress. The responsibility for building the republic for which Thomas and his comrades sacrificed their lives for freedom does not rest only with the government of the day, it rests with each and every one of us. The struggle for justice, for human rights, for equality does not take place just in Leinster House. It takes place in our schools, in our workplaces, in our communities, in our neighbourhoods. To me, this will be the real legacy of the commemorative events that have taken place across Ireland. A re-energised sense of community, of political engagement, of the understanding that while we have fundamental human rights, we also have responsibilities to each other, and most especially to the most vulnerable in our society. A new generation must make of the proclamation a living document, to accept the legacy left for them by thousands of Republicans who were held in Richmond barracks, to build a society and country deserved by the whole nation and of all of its parts, where derche san orógra, the líon poblach na hÉireann agus élíonn sí leis seo, gailseanna ó gach airdanach idir agus bhean, rahíonn an phoblach saoirse credamh agus saoirse hibhialta, chóchearta agus códheis dar Saranic ile, agus darbhíonn gur bé arún séan agus sonas a lorach don náisiún ile, agus de gach rinde ag tuairt ceanna de chlána ile na náisiún mar a chéile. Tá go leor daoine a caithfear buchas a gabháil lo de Harbh an obair crua a dhéan siad le cinú go méid an droichead seo anamnathe mar droichead chuimhnachan Hamas i Léirí. I would like to end by thanking some people who have worked so hard to seeing this renaming become a reality here today. The Tom Clarke Commemoration Committee, Dublin City Council Commemorative Naming Committee under the chair of Comhairle Micheál MacDonagh for supporting the application, the members of Dublin City Council for approving the request, and I want to acknowledge all the councillors here present today, Brendan Kenny and his staff in the City Council Culture, Recreation and Amenities Department, the Chief Executive Owen Keegan, the staff of City Council's Transportation Department who care for this bridge. Gurv míle maith the Uachtaráin as a bheith shuttling and you. Thank you, Uachtaráin and Sabrina, for joining us today. I know it has a special meaning for you and Sabrina, and it is wonderful that you could join us today. To the family of Tom Clarke, who are with us today, Faultine Shiv, you have joined us from an emotional ceremony in Kilmainham jail, and you remembered your ancestor. Please take comfort and pride in the fact that he will now be remembered by Dubliners every day. Bíodh sé go bún in our gifna. Gurv míle maith.
The City Council's policy on commemorations recognised the role of the relatives of those who participated in 1916, and the role of the Tom Clarke Memorial Committee has been mentioned a couple of times this morning. So it's appropriate, therefore, that we now hear from the great niece of Kathleen Daly, wife of Tom Clarke and chair of the Tom Clarke Committee, Helen Litton.
President, Mrs Higgins, Lord Vera, honoured guests. As a great niece of Kathleen Clarke and as chair of the Tom Clarke Memorial Committee, it gives me such great pleasure to welcome you all here on this day, the centenary of Tom Clarke's execution on the 3rd of May 1916. And tomorrow marks the centenary of his brother-in-law Edward Daly's execution as well. The speech by President Higgins has made clear the extent to which Tom Clarke masterminded the Easter Rising, keeping always in the background to the extent that he was for many years overlooked and almost forgotten. And the presence here today, this centenary of President and Mrs Higgins, clearly indicates their recognition of his unique importance in the history of the Easter Rising and of the country, and the naming of this bridge copper fastens that recognition. A movement to commemorate Tom Clarke was spearheaded by Pádraig Byrne, one of our committee members, some years ago, and strongly supported by then Minister for Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht, Jimmy Deanahan. In 2005, Senator Lárós Ó suggested renaming Dublin Airport after Tom Clarke, but this went no further, and a later proposal to rename the Port Tunnel didn't go any further either. Our committee, which is sponsored by the 1916-21 Club, excuse me, represented here today by their president, Nora Kubowski in the front there. We were established in 2013, the end of 2013, and we've worked ever since to create a permanent memorial to Tom Clarke in the city where he spent the final years of his life. I thank the committee members for all their work: Jim Doyle, Pádraig Byrne, James Connolly-Heron, Councillor Niall Ring, Micheál Dublin, Lárós Ó, Tom Cooper, Terry Fagan, Aidan Lambert, Liam McGrattan, Sean O'Mahony and Jimmy Wren. And we go forward from here in the hope of perhaps doing a further memorial to Tom Clarke, perhaps near one of the shops which he owned. I want to thank all the public representatives who have supported us, especially Councillor Niall Ring, and the staff of Dublin City Council who have worked so hard to organise this ceremony. I particularly wish to thank our patrons, starting with Mrs. Higgins, who has been a patron of ours from the earliest time and a strong supporter of Tom Clarke, Robert Balla, Dr. Kenna, Dr. Martin Mansur, Justice Hugh O'Flaherty, Cormac O'Malley and Williams Russell Cole. We are sending our best wishes to Dr. Shane Kenna, who is seriously ill and cannot be here today. I also welcome family members of other signatories of the proclamation, and all the members of the 1916-21 Club, particularly Nora Kubowski, as I say, and the National Graves Association. It's very hard to say what somebody who died 100 years ago would think of the Ireland we have today. It's impossible. But I think really what we should do from here, as the Ordinary Mayor said, is to look at the proclamation and move from there. And if this is not the Ireland they wish to build, how can we turn it into the Ireland they wish to build, with the ideals supporting it? It's a great day, and thank you all very much indeed for coming.
Thank you very much, Helen. Ladies and gentlemen, before President Higgins unveils the plaque, we're going to hear a performance of the song "A Flag of Freedom," a song written in memory of Tom Clarke by the Group League. I want to thank President Michael D. Higgins, Ard Vernie Lawley, Lord Mayor, and all of you for joining us here today, and invite you all to join the President and his wife Sabine in the Ringsend Irish Town Community Centre for some refreshments. I do hope you will join us afterwards. So in a few moments, the President will unveil, and Mrs. Higgins will unveil the plaque, but in the meantime, Lane.
Okay, thank you. It's a great privilege for us to be here today to perform this song. We wrote this song a while back in honour of Tom Clarke. It's called "A Flag of Freedom," and we hope you enjoy it. As I lay here in Pentonville, jail in London town, my heart is in Dungannon, the county of Tyrone. They call me Henry Wilson here, for I keep them in the dark, and I'll die for Ireland's freedom, and my name is Thomas Clarke. Beneath the flag of gold and green, I stood with Pearson Connolly, I fought for liberty. Beneath the flag fall fought for one and all. Our battle cry was do or die, and we answered Ireland's call. Beneath the flag of gold and green, I stood with fearsome colony. I fought for liberty. Beneath the flag of gold and green, I gave my life for Ireland. Beneath the flag of green, I gave my life for Ireland. Beneath the flag of green. Thank you very much.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, President of the Higgins, accompanied by the Lord Mayor, will now unveil the plaque.
Yeah, just inside there. And just towards me, please. Thank you very, very much. Just right here.
Right there. Great. Hey, Jim.
How are you, Richard?
Jim, congratulations. Great day.
Just here for one thing. Thank you very much. And maybe just looking over towards that building just down that way there. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks a million. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ernie, how are you? I'll see you before it's over.
I want up glasses. I want up glasses.
3 for 2. Get in there, Lauren. Just in case the wrong message.
Jim told me. Get Alice. That's Alice. Who is Alice?
Who is Alice? Who
Just someone's Alice.
She'll get Alice. Okay. Comes out
Alice is the local Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor insect. Bring that Lord Mayor out.
You were great to come, Alice. Great to come. Great to come. Great to come. You all hang together.
And another on the side. I think that's Carly, look at me again. Doreen. Thank you.
Double the game. Ladies and gentlemen, can you clear the way for the colour party to leave, please? Folks, if you can step to one side here, we'll walk through. Folks, if you can just clear off the path, please, for the colour party. Thank you. Sorry. Does he know it's there? Well, it means we're all the traffic. Yeah. It won't be long. No, you're fine.
We were charging for the side.